Sold your boring stamps at a yard sale. My sister Jessica texted with a laughing emoji, attaching a photo of her holding 2 crisp $100 bills. Got $200, better than letting them rot in storage forever like Grandpa's other junk. The question that made my coffee mug freeze halfway to my lips wasn't whether she'd actually broken into my climate-controlled storage unit, but whether the buyer had already discovered what he'd purchased for the price of a nice dinner. I wrote back simply, "Good for you." 3 dots appeared immediately. "That's it? No tantrum about your precious collection? Wow, therapy really is working." Faced with tears of joy, I set my phone down and walked to my home office, where the certificates of authenticity for my collection lined the wall, including the crown jewel, documentation for the 1856 British Guiana One-Cent Magenta, certified by the Royal Philatelic Society. The same stamp Jessica had just sold at a suburban yard sale for less than I'd paid for the UV protective case it was stored in. My phone rang. "Jessica, not texting now." "Okay, your Zen reaction is creeping me out," she said without preamble. "Are you plotting something?" "No plotting. Just working. Congratulations on the sale. It's just, you've been weird about those stamps since we were kids. Remember when you cried because I touched your album with sticky fingers?" "I remember. And now nothing? Not even asking which ones I sold. You said you sold them. What's done is done. I mean, I only grabbed one of those boring books. The red leather one? Figured you had dozens anyway. The red leather album. The Bordeaux collection I'd spent 15 years assembling, including 3 of the rarest stamps in existence." My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice level. "How did you get into my storage unit?" "Oh, please. You've used the same password since high school. 0615 Grandpa's birthday. I needed boxes for my move, remembered you had some in there, and saw those dusty albums. Figured I was doing you a favor decluttering. And you decided to sell them instead of asking me? Would you have said yes? Besides, you owe me for storing Mom's china when you traveled last year. Consider us even." "Even? Right. See. Therapy is helping." Old Marcus would have screamed about private property and called the cops. "I should go. Work call coming in." "Whatever. Thanks for being cool about it. Maybe I'll buy you dinner with my profit." She hung up. I immediately dialed my insurance company, then my lawyer, then took several deep breaths before calling Heritage Auctions emergency line. "This is Marcus Webb. I believe someone may have sold items from my stolen collection at a yard sale in Riverside. Specifically, an 1856 British Guiana One-Cent Magenta." The silence on the other end lasted so long I wondered if we'd been disconnected. "Sir," the voice finally said, "did you say the British Guiana? At a yard sale? Please hold while I get our president." 43 minutes later, I had confirmation. A dealer named Harrison Pike had posted photos on Instagram, bragging about his yard sale find of the century. The British Guiana, the inverted Jenny, and a 1918 red revenue stamp. He'd already authenticated the British Guiana through preliminary testing and was preparing to consign it to auction with an estimated value of $18.3 million. "Mr. Webb," the Heritage president said carefully, "do you have documentation proving ownership?" "Complete documentation, including purchase receipts, authentication certificates, insurance appraisals, and security footage of the storage unit showing my sister's unauthorized entry this morning." "Your sister sold these?" "For $200. At a yard sale. Without permission." "I see. And Mr. Pike is about to become part of a very expensive lesson about buying stolen goods." The legal machinery moved faster than I expected. Within 2 hours, Pike had been contacted by law enforcement. His Instagram posts disappeared. Jessica's phone started ringing with numbers she didn't recognize. She called me, panic replacing her earlier smugness. "Marcus, something weird is happening. Some guy named Pike is blowing up my phone about stamps. He's talking about lawsuits and authentication, and he's probably upset about his purchase. But it was just old stamps. I looked them up online, British something. The ones on eBay were like $50. Did you check the year?" "What? No. Who cares about the year? Philatelists care. The 1856 British Guiana is one of the rarest stamps in the world. The last one sold for $9.5 million. Silence. "Then, that's not funny. I'm not joking. Check the auction records. June 2021 Sotheby's. $9.5 million. But that's impossible. You're a middle school history teacher. You don't have $1 million stamps." I'm a history teacher because I love teaching. I can afford to be because Grandpa left me his collection, which I've carefully expanded for 20 years. The same collection you just robbed. I didn't rob. Breaking into my storage unit and selling my property without permission is theft, Jessica. The fact that you're my sister doesn't change that. You're scaring me. You should be scared. Pike is demanding his money back. When you can't provide the stamps, he's going to sue. The police are already involved because the value makes this grand larceny. Marcus, please. I didn't know. I thought they were just dusty old stamps. Ignorance isn't a defense, especially when you committed breaking and entering to steal them. Her voice went shrill. You'd send your own sister to jail? I'm not sending you anywhere. You sent yourself the moment you decided my property was yours to take. The next call came from our mother. Marcus, what's this about stamps and police? Jessica is hysterical. Jessica stole from me. Now she's facing consequences. She's your sister, who broke into my storage unit and sold my property. Family doesn't make theft legal, Mom. It was a misunderstanding. It was breaking, entering, and grand larceny. The misunderstanding was Jessica thinking she could take whatever she wanted because she's always gotten away with it before. You're really going to ruin her life over stamps? She ruined her own life. I'm just not cushioning her fall this time. The story hit the collector forums within hours. Yard sale disaster. $18 million stamp collection sold for $200. Pike, facing potential charges for receiving stolen goods, was cooperating fully. He'd recorded the entire transaction on his phone, including Jessica's cheerful declaration that she was cleaning out my brother's junk. By evening, Jessica had hired a lawyer. Not a good one, she couldn't afford good, but someone who at least understood the magnitude of her problem. My client is willing to make restitution, he offered during our first call. With what? She sold an $18 million collection for $200. Unless she has $18 million hidden somewhere, restitution is impossible. She's family. Surely you don't want. What I wanted was my property left alone. That ship has sailed, along with 3 irreplaceable stamps. Mr. Pike has agreed to return them if charges are dropped. Mr. Pike is trying to avoid prosecution for receiving stolen goods. The stamps will be returned through legal channels, not negotiation. Jessica tried emotional manipulation next. She showed up at my apartment at midnight, mascara streaking her face. Please, Marcus. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Can you undo the sale? Can you unbreak into my storage unit? Can you give me back the hours I'll spend in court? I said I was sorry. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. This will destroy my life. My job, my reputation. Your choices. Your consequences. You have millions in stamps. Why does this matter so much? I stared at her. Do you genuinely not understand? Those stamps weren't just valuable, they were Grandpa's legacy. The British Guiana was his prize, bought with his military pension. He left them to me because I appreciated them, not their price. And you threw that away for $200 and the petty pleasure of decluttering my life. I didn't know. Because you never asked. Never cared. Just took like you've always taken. She left sobbing. Mom called hourly, begging me to reconsider. Other relatives chimed in, painting me as heartless for choosing stamps over sister. The legal process ground on. Pike, terrified of prosecution, returned the stamps immediately and provided full documentation of the transaction. Jessica was charged with grand larceny and breaking and entering. Her lawyer negotiated it down to a plea deal. 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and restitution of $200. That's all? She asked during the settlement conference. That's all you got for them, the judge noted dryly. The victim has recovered his property. You're fortunate he's not pursuing civil damages for emotional distress and legal fees. Jessica looked at me across the courtroom. For the first time in our lives, I saw actual understanding in her eyes. Understanding that her actions had consequences. That being family didn't grant immunity. That taking what wasn't hers could cost everything. She completed her community service at a local museum, cataloging their collection. Ironic punishment, but effective. She learned to appreciate the value of preserving history, even dusty old artifacts that seemed worthless to casual observers. 2 years later, she sent me a letter. Not a text, but an actual handwritten letter. I get it now, she wrote. Working with the museum collection, seeing how people donated treasures. I understand what I almost destroyed. Not just monetary value, but history, legacy, love. I know you'll never trust me again. I wouldn't trust me either. But I wanted you to know that I finally understand why you cried when I touched your stamps with sticky fingers. They weren't just stamps. They were Grandpa's way of teaching you patience, care, appreciation for beauty that others overlooked. I'm sorry I sold that for $200. I'm sorry I never saw their real value. Not the millions, but the memories. Your sister, who finally gets it. Jessica. I framed the letter. Not because I forgave her. Forgiveness takes time, but because people can change. Sometimes it takes nearly destroying something precious to understand its value. The stamps went back in storage, now with biometric locks and redundant security. The British Guiana sits in a new case, none the worse for its yard sale adventure. When I look at it, I don't see $18 million. I see Grandpa, magnifying glass in hand, teaching me that the smallest things can hold the greatest value. And sometimes, the most expensive lessons come at bargain prices. Even if they cost a sister $200 and 2 years of her life to learn.